So I have loved theme parks all my life. Usually, every year growing up, I visited one of the two major theme parks in my state. I live in Virginia, and the two major theme parks there are Busch Gardens Williamsburg and King's Dominion. Both of them are good as hell. There is also a bunch of other minor places that have theme park esque attractions like Go Karts Plus, State Fair, but they're not important to this video. I think theme parks and theme park rides have been some of my most consistent hyperfixations next to Lego games and Tokusatsu. Fun fact, I have an unfinished script about the old mountain that King's Dominion used to have that housed a volcano, the blast coaster, and a bunch of other rides over its long history. Uh, Now, the beginning of this Fuzi journey is with the end of another hyperfixation of mine. More specifically, my hyperfixation on arcade games. I'm generously calling it that since it was more like baby's first gambling addiction. Long story short, I had a really bad run at my favorite arcade and then I just stopped going there. You know, kind of sad, but whatever. Now, I wrote that in the scripts. I have no idea why because it didn't even start there. It started in July. So, the first theme park visit of the year happened to coincide with another time of celebration Independence Day. Basically, Dad saw that Busch Gardens had a deal on free day tickets for July 4th, and he told me about it. I was like, you know what, sure, let's do it! Of those free tickets, I only managed to get two trips out of them because I couldn't pick a good time for a third. I'll tell you why later on. Before that, we were supposed to go to Kingston for my birthday. But you know what happened the day before my birthday? That's right, the water lines in Doswell broke, so we just could not go in. We spent the day at Dave and Buster's instead because it was nearby. I had some fun there, especially with like all the arcade stuff, especially with like the Yahtzee arcade game. That went hard. So the first visit to BG didn't really have much going on. I was definitely spending more of my time just appreciating the park itself and wandering around it. There is a very good reason why the park won the most beautiful theme park award or whatever it's called. I think I started off by going to the Italy area and grabbing some chicken parmesan from Marco Polo's marketplace. Now, the chicken parm was amazing when I went to Christmastown in 2024, but I soon came to realize that it was very, very mid. After that, I went on Turkish Delights, which is the teacup ride. Rode it all the time growing up. Still super fun. Everything that happened after that is kind of hazy because it wasn't a super eventful day. Like, I did not go on any coasters at all. I think I only went on like a couple rides in total. I would have gone on Tour Coaster had it been open since I rode it at that same Christmastown visit and it went well, but it sadly wasn't. Uh, Day of finishing this script, I actually remembered that I went on all three water rides, which is, pretty cool. Side note, because I cannot remember which of the visits this happened in, I'm pretty sure it happened this visit, but it might have happened the other one, because I went to Le Scoot on both of them, but when I landed on Le Scoot, there was some issue with the locker areas right near it. So I had to run all the way across the Germany-New France bridge to put my stuff in the Alpengeist lockers and then get back to Le Scoot. Believe me, I was so pressed. I was just constantly trying to memorize my locker number and code because not only am I like going through a long ass ride to get on the ride, I have to like run right back across that bridge once the ride's over to be there and get my stuff back. I was worrying so much. Thankfully, it all turned out well. Yep. At around 8, I went on the sky ride going from England to France. The sky ride is one of my favorite parts of the park because it's a really scenic trip across the park. I can see pretty much most of the things along the Skylines route from above. which is super cool. I always preferred it to the train, though that was what I went on most of the time when I was with my family. The trip ended with me going to Festa Italia to check out the July 4th fireworks display. Something funny did end up happening though. I was about to meet up with my dad and my sister, and I was like, I should get some ice cream to celebrate the moment. But Josephine's, the main ice cream parlor in France, wasn't open at the time. Neither were the many Dippin' Dot stands across the park. So I have to go to Roman Freeze, which is Festa Italia's ice cream slash gelato slash sugary treat joint. So that leads to me standing in line for an ungodly amount of time as people who clearly have the same idea as me slowly wait to get their gelato. I got a compliment on my shirt by the lady in front of me, so that was nice. I'm also pretty sure I got a Live Free shirt on my way out this visit, so that's cool. The second visit was either later on in July or early on in August. All that I know was that it was on a Friday. I go to Marco Polo's Marketplace first thing because I still think the chicken parm there is good instead of mid. I generally do not remember if I ever went to Festa Italia on that trip because I do not remember doing anything there. All that I remember was that I went across to Oktoberfest and then I went to Dark Coaster. Before this visit, I had only ever ridden 4 real coasters at the park: for Bolton, Invader, Tempesto, and Dark Coaster. As I mentioned before, I rode Dark Coaster for the first time at that Christmas Town visit. So I am back at this coaster once more. I think to entertain myself during the line, I was re-watching the Quag 4 Guys 4 Lucky Block Pillars video, which was, it was pretty cool. Pretty fun waiting experience having that on in the background. After the line's done, I am finally on the coaster, and oh my god, it was amazing. The multiple launches on this thing are all just perfect. It feels like they were placed in, like, the perfect spots just to make the speed boost sudden each time. I had a way better experience on this ride than I ever did the original Curse of Dark Castle. Not super fair to compare, considering that the old Dark Castle was a slowly moving dark ride and not an intense motorbike coaster. That and also the old Dark Castle ride scared the crap out of me when I was a kid. So once I'm out of the coaster, I start getting a little bravado. Big Bad Wolf, The Wolf's Revenge has just opened, and since the original was taken down when I hadn't become conscious yet, I was kinda curious to try it. However, I was still kinda nervous about it, so I kinda just weave in and out of the line for a bit. That is, until I finally summoned the courage to wait in line and get in. I'm pretty sure for the lines of the next 3 coasters I was rewatching Chief Logan's Calamity Skyblock series, which also pretty fun waiting experience with that on. Uh, Wolf's Revenge, pretty good ride. I was hyping it up to be way more intense than it actually was, but it was still pretty thrilling, you know? Pretty good inverted coaster. So, I'm off the Wolf's Revenge, and the bravado I have is just off the charts. I am not nervous anymore, just prepared for anything that the park will throw at me. So I evaluate my choices. Well, Pantheon and Apollo are all the way in Festa Italia, and I don't really feel like going all the way for either of them. Griffon and Vader are all the way in France areas, and I don't really want to go all the way over there and do those either. So I choose Verbolten. Fun fact, Verbolten was the first big kid coaster that I've ever ridden. I'm surprised I thought that was a great first coaster, considering that I find it more intense than some of the coasters that do have inversions. I guess younger me thought inversions equals intensity and just never realized for a while. I'm pretty sure Verbolten was like the longest of the lines. Or at least it felt like that, since I remember more of the lines than I do with the other coasters. And then once I'm aboard the front coaster, I am just locked in. I am prepared to experience this coaster like I have so many times before with my family. It was an exhilarating experience as always. I actually think knowing about the magnetic drop is way more thrilling than not knowing about it, since you are just anticipating it so hard. It is such a great coaster, and, you know, of course, there's the like the big drop over a lake that is just iconic. And I get off Verboen with less than an hour to go before I have to leave the park with my family so I can get to work. So I decided to get one last ride in. And that last ride was Alpengeist. After successfully tanking 3 coasters, I decided to take on Alpengeist since I've never ridden it before and I knew it was something I could handle. After all, I literally did another invert earlier. How bad could this be? It was an amazing ride experience. I think my favorite part of it, looking back, was the Cobra Loop. A Cobra Loop is basically what happens when you stitch a corkscrew in between a vertical loop. I didn't know what it was at the time, but I think it was like the most fun I'd had in the ride. And like the foot choppers were really good too. Next time I visit, I'm probably going to Pantheon and Apollo's Chariot first since I want to get those under my belt ASAP. Considering what I've handled and come to handle, I could definitely get out of those very, very well. King's Dominion visit is probably my favorite out of all the visits. As mentioned before, it was supposed to be for my birthday, but I ended up going in August because we still have the tickets and we were all like, well, let's go while it's still summer and, before it gets colder. So, after convening with my family for a bit at the start, I immediately went for Dominator. Unfortunately, Dominator was closed. A shame, I kind of wanted to experience it without losing my breath due to the cold wind hitting my face like I did on my first ride through at one of the... I'm actually forgetting what the winter event is called, okay. Anyways, I changed course for Jungle Expedition. This is my first visit ever since it had the massive rebrand that tried to unify everything under a single vision. So the first coaster I set on is Tumbili. This is because Tumbili is a 4D coaster, which I'll have the definition of on screen. I've always wanted to ride a 4D coaster ever since I watched that Defunct Land video on the Green Lantern coaster that sucked ass. I spent my time waiting in line reading Darks and Droids, which is the Star Wars D&D comic. I got through most of episode 1 during that visit. Tumbili was pretty cool. I had some really awesome spins during the ride. It's a very short ride, but it's short but sweet. Right after Tumbili, I made a beeline towards Flight of Fear because I thought I could handle the coaster. Flight of Fear is a launch coaster with a pair of pretty insane inversions at the start, including a Cobra Load just like Alpengeist. I spent most of the line just switching between Darks and Droids and TV tropes, just trying not to get completely bored as the line slowly moves. Eventually, I enter the area just before you board the saucer and get into the ride station. Line movement comes to a halt. Word starts spreading amongst everyone in the line that something's gone wrong. Not wrong enough to close the ride, but wrong enough to heavily delay it. So I am now just waiting in this line, hoping to stick it out. After God knows how long, I finally just decide to quit. Once I'm out of the Flight of Fear fiasco, I immediately make a beeline for Pantherian. Yeah, that Pantherian. The one where the lift hill is 305 feet tall. The one where the max speed is 90 miles per hour. That one. The line is pretty long since it probably also got a bunch of Flight of Fear refugees. I do remember seeing a music video on one of the displays in line, but I couldn't tell you what the song was. All I remember was that it was pop punk and the lead singer was Asian. So the ride itself was pretty fire. It was fast as hell. I'm surprised I didn't black out at any point, although I could have and I just would never know. I could not see a thing throughout the ride because the speed of the ride was just making my hair just violently sling into my face and just keep me from seeing. So once I'm off Pantherian, I just decided to take a quick break. I get some OK chicken from a chicken shack and leave off to Soak City. Soak City was kind of boring because most of the water slides were just not open. The only one I went on was the one where you stand in the tubes and the floor drops out from under you. I genuinely do not want to ever go on one again. That was so fucking scary. Once I'm done with Soak City, I go to Candy Apple Grove where I just dilly dally until I eventually decide to go on Grizzly. I genuinely cannot remember anything about Grizzly except that was kind of rough. Sorry. Sorry, it's just. I could not remember a single thing about this ride. And so, I'm in the same situation as last time where I'm like very close to the deadline for leaving the park with my family. And so I decided to get one last ride in. And that ride is the Backlot Stunt Coaster. This is a coaster that I've always wanted to go on ever since the Jungle Expedition rebrand started. I always wanted to go on it before it was inevitably rebranded into something else to fit in with the rest of the section's theming. Something fun that happened during the wait was this kid would just continually just hop up on like the guide rails, and the ride operator would just constantly have to tell him off. That was really really funny. The ride itself was pretty cool. The signature triple helix of the ride was super fun to ride through. Sadly, the fire effects in the section with the helicopter didn't work. Kind of a shame. Those always looked super hard when I watched those old coaster POVs. So that's pretty much everything with the amusement park stuff from last year. I did have another chance to go visit Busch Gardens during Christmas Town, but I turned it down in favor of Christmas shopping, which will be its own FTT because of how wrong it went. Also, before I end the video, I want to tell you guys, I am going to be live on Twitch tomorrow streaming my part in Mr. Chadwick's Vampire Saga Minecraft Civilization event. Will I be able to survive the first day, or will I just die within the first few minutes? Only one way to find out, folks. All that said, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. If you want more videos like this, I'd suggest liking this one and getting yourself certified and notified by hitting that bell. If there was anything in this video that you want to talk about, just leave a comment below. Peace.